Welcome back to Curious Comedy, a podcast made to inform and entertain and to enjoy and rack your brain. Oh, and our name? I'm Tom.
I'm Jala.
And without further ado, let's get right into it.
Yes, so we had quite an eventful week, which means that we have a lot to discuss. So let's not keep you waiting. So let's first talk a bit about the UK political landscape. So as we have all heard, probably, Liz Truss, who was the Prime Minister of the UK, has already resigned. And she was, I think, the shortest sitting Prime Minister.
In over 200 years.
Yeah, quite amazing. But she topped some more records than that. So let's dive some deeper into that. So what she did was we called it the tax cut for the rich, right? But maybe it's good to put some nuance into it. And that would be that it is not really a tax cut for the rich. This would rather be a mini budget. And the mini budget consisted of many things, but in essence, it meant like four big things. And one was like that there was a planned increase in corporate tax, which was cancelled. Then there was a rise in national insurance contributions, which was reversed. And then the basic rate of income tax was cut and the highest was abolished. So the results of these measurements means that, let's say the rich people are will receive proportional more benefit than the poor people. As you could imagine, that would be the result of that the basic tax income will be cut, but the highest rate is abolished. So some people are not targeting the highest rates, right? But the people that are now paying less tax. So, and we know that wealth is concentrated, so it's a bad thing, right? There was another thing which I thought was kind of funny, and that was that Boris Johnson said that he wanted to be, to be a prime minister, like again, you could say. I think we put it very nicely in that manner. But a little bit to conclude, I thought that it was kind of a sad thing because, of course, it was an absurd idea, right? But I think that it is quite a sad thing because conservatives will use examples like these to argue that innovation will ultimately slow things down. And when you innovate, sometimes in the short run you will win, and then it could be a remedy. But in the long run, let's say for example, this budget will lead to an increase in borrowing cost for the UK. Therefore, there will be liquidity problems for pension funds. There will be instability on markets, a devaluation of the pound upon sterling. So a lot of consequences coming from trying to innovate, and maybe that is a bad innovation, but you that is in hindsight, right? And so what you have right now is a situation that the bad news is punished and good news is not rewarded in the same proportion, factually.
Exactly.
So now, if it is a tax cut for the rich or not, in the end, I believe at least that Truss did it because she was convinced it would improve the UK economy in the long run, right? But do you agree, or how do you think that the UK should proceed, given that it wants to maintain its global power?
The way it looks to me is that Truss was basically used as a marionette or a puppet to get rid of all the bills that that would inconvenience the Conservative Party. And then she got out of there as soon as possible and probably has a fat check heading her bank account right now. But in reality, what's happening to UK when you look at its people and you divide it, it's that you see that the people that need it the most, the people that are struggling to pay the electric bill, struggling to pay the groceries. I mean, we see it here more and more all the time. People close to me, including myself, get affected by it. I think those are the people that really need it the most right now. And we... It doesn't take a stretch of imagination to see that the people that have it the best in the country don't need extra help right now to stay afloat. That doesn't seem to be the case. It's just greed coming up again. And honestly, the way it looks to me right now, and it could be way off, so take it for what it's worth, but it just looks like they put a person there at the top of the country as a prime minister. He is the, or he or she will face all the blame from the people that, yeah, you are doing this wrong and you are ruining our country, and we are in such struggles because of you. But they can put whoever they want there. It doesn't matter, because they're not the person that is writing up all the rules. There is another very heavily driven agenda behind that, which is greed of the people that have the most money. And the way that I would see it is, if you want to make the United Kingdom a more interesting and appealing country, is that people are able to innovate within that country. So the argument that you were presenting earlier, the fact that they're stripping they're stripping innovation from its value, I think that's the biggest downfall the country could ever make. Because once it stops being innovative, it loses all its current edge that it has. Brexit might have just been undone, because if you're not removing yourself from the EU because you have better things to do, then what are you doing? Then you might as well have gone to the safe route. So they need to put in their efforts to allow the people to have the maximum ability to contribute to society. And right now, people, if you are barely getting by, then you're not thriving, then you're not innovating, then you're not creating. So I think that's where the downfall in the UK is.
Yeah, yeah. I saw a graph which shows on the x-axis on the time, I think from 1870, and then you have on the y-axis you have the value, or the amount of dollar you need to pay for £1.
Yeah.
And then you see in the 1870s that you have to pay $4 for £1.
Yeah.
And now in 2022 you see, so it's like a stair, right?
Yeah,
Staircase. And then you see, eventually that now it's at 1.06, I think.
Yeah,
so it's if you think about it, that is some
4 times.
That is wealth destruction, like in its optima forma, right?
Yeah.
So but maybe as a follow-up, would you what should the UK do to convince you to live happily in the UK? And then, right? So what would be like a minimum requirement for you to be motivated to emigrate to the UK? With the note that we already live in the Netherlands, where we have quite a high living standard.
Yeah, exactly. So indeed, that's something to take into consideration. But the same things that the Netherlands seem to be struggling with are similar things that the United Kingdom is struggling with, but they seem to probably have it worse than we even. So I mean, if the cost of electricity, the cost of living there is reasonably cheap, and there's a lot of opportunities for interesting work jobs, there's a complete freedom of trade. There is not ridiculous amounts of tax I have to pay to, for example, start my own business, or even to work under a contract for an employer. Those are all things that could entice me to come to the country. But I think those are the thing specifically that is doing the worst in, and those are the things that young, innovative, interested, creative people are driven to, because they need cheap housing, they need to be able to innovate and to create, and they need to have a bit of financial security to allow themselves to explore their opportunities. Well, if you're not providing any of that, you're pushing young people away from your country, which is gonna cause the median age in your country to go up, which we have already seen as a problem because of the baby boom. So there are the exact things that you already mentioned that would make the UK a very interesting place and could put it in a position of power are the things that it's doing the worst in. Yeah. So for me, I see it only going downhill, and we haven't even touched the subject of crime yet in the UK, which, I mean, let's be real here. I wouldn't feel the safest going to the United Kingdom. Mm-hmm. And I mean, it's not as bad as some other countries. It's still the West, but there is a lot of violence, and there is a lot of crime, and there is a lot of unsafety and drug trade also happening. And I think that's probably the one profession that the youth can find themselves in, that they don't have to pay a ridiculous amount of tax. So that is the one thing that the UK entices me for, is the drug trade. And I'll like to leave it at that.
That is smart for you.
Yeah.
No, but I agree. And
Allegedly.
I think the UK is kind of an elite island, right? I have a feeling that they aspire to be.
Yeah.
Which is quite interesting because I bet I will put my money on the fact that I think the UK will lose his power position or her power position due to that, because I do think that indeed people not only are searching for affordable housing, and especially not the people that are earning the most, but even the people that are earning the most and are able to live like in the middle of nowhere with a lot of luxury, even those people want to are social animals, and in the end they want to have some kind of connection of contact with other humans. And if everyone is like the same in a sense of highly productive, highly intellectual and stuff like that, so like a homogeneous yeah, thank you. And society, then it will trigger you less, right? It is less inspiring.
Yeah.
And I think the most creative and even maybe the most productive people want to improve themselves, and therefore they want to have an environment in which not everybody is the same, at least, or thinking the same.
No, fair, and that's true. But indeed, the point you brought up, it hadn't run through my mind yet. But indeed, I think the UK is a very elitist country, but it takes a lot of pride in their elitism. For example, I've heard Boris Johnson speak a few times, and humble, like the humility is unbeknownst to the upper class there, and they really feel like they are above their people. And I think it's causing more and more of a disconnect between the people and their supposed rulers, and that I think that's one of the things that is causing them to head for disaster, and it's only enforced by things such as the Liz Truss accident.
Yeah, no, most definitely. Yeah, no, you can see the whole world reacting to it. But maybe as a subject where also the whole world has an opinion about, that would maybe be a great moment to introduce. Yeah, I want to say our friend, but that would be a little bit too much.
That's pushing it a little bit.
Yeah. So I want to give you the answer.
Yeah. Andrew Tate, one of the most famous and infamous people that has been surrounding social media right now. I mean, he has been a big inspiration for many and a big headache for others. So, what do you think about him?
Yeah, no. So to be honest, I think the first time I have encountered the man was I think via you or something, or one of the first times I heard of it. Then he came on a couple of podcasts. So yeah, as you know, I don't have any social media, so when I heard that a guy is killing the internet, I most of the times know that this is something special, because if I know of someone on social media without having social media, you are conquering the world to a certain extent, you could say, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, you told me, and that he has a big following, and then I started to know him right in the week that he got banned.
Yeah.
And I think that for me is really the interesting part, because in the end, I think a lot of people have a lot of different opinions about Andrew Tate. I think that is fair. For me, I don't want to dive too deep into things that he's saying. I think some stuff that he's saying has some truth to it, and another situation, I think it's just put it in his phrasing, completely and utterly bullshit. So I sometimes think that he is a kind of an narcissist, who is kind of insecure, and has found a way of convincing people by ranting, and by just rambling on and on. And because a lot of people are impressed by some words he's using, they have a feeling that almost everything is he's saying is right. And I think what his power is that he like talks for 90% some factual stuff, and then put some 10% bullshit into it, in which for someone not listening very accurately or with a critical mind, then who sounded like some epiphany almost, which
Yeah.
it isn't. It is just yeah, in Dutch you would say a circle reasoning, right?
Yeah,
So
exactly.
you're just yeah. So that is that. But I do think, and that is what I think is quite interesting about the man, that a lot of like we live in a free world, right? In which we say, okay, you can have your opinion and you can have an open debate and we can differ in opinions. That you can see that Andrew, the fact that not only that he's banned, but the fact that so many people became almost mad at the fact that he was able to say that stuff, and that so many people were following him because he was saying that and they agreed with it. I think for me shows the fact that we are disconnected to a certain extent with each other, because we live with each other and we say we are constantly talking with each other, but now a man from the Western world is saying something which sometimes is quite crazy, but it is not the craziest thing you could imagine.
Yeah, no.
And the world is too small for it, and we are not able to just have kind of a conversation with him intellectually, and just debate with him on a high level. And I think the fact that there is so much discussion just for the fact that about a discussion about the fact that should he be able to ventilate his thoughts, yes or no, says enough about our the way we are communicating right now. Because for a lot of people, to be honest, the same counts for me, sometimes it is too hard and it takes me too much effort, and therefore I will not do it, to debate with someone who has a completely different opinion. I'm not willing to, I most of the time are, but I can find some times in my past that I just thought, okay, leave it, I don't want to debate with you, it is not worth the effort.
No. Yeah.
So that. What do you think of it?
Well, firstly, credit where credit is due. I think his marketing strategy to get himself plastered all over TikTok, Instagram, and whatever was brilliant. And I think one of the most fun parts about him being banned from all platforms is that he didn't even have a TikTok, so he couldn't be banned, because the way that he was spread across the platform was through fan accounts that posted clips of him. So I thought that was quite funny. Like it was his safe wall from getting banned, as if he anticipated it.
Which didn't work.
Which didn't fully work, let's be real, but it did have some effect.
Yeah, sure.
Some still gets through, even though I have not nearly seen as much of him in recent days. But that could also be because the hype is a little bit gone. But from what I've been able to tell from him, indeed, is that in general he has something to say, right? And there is room for it, and sometimes he has insights or has a way of looking at certain things that I think, okay, well, it's not something I have come across naturally, but it's something that I could perhaps relate to at least partially, or could understand, or I could see his perspective. But there is oftentimes that 10 or that 20% that is just mixed in there, where you're like, I don't know about that, or you should have definitely said that differently, or I take your point, but you're missing some nuance, right? And especially those impressionable minds might be taken aback by that and might not be able to distinguish the facts from the subjective that he puts forth. And I think that's the biggest argument that's been used against him. But I genuinely don't believe that he has any ill will towards people. No. I don't think he's trying to hurt anybody.
No, but I do think that because he is he thinks that he's narcissist in a way that, in the sense that he thinks that he's smarter than he is, which is the most dangerous pitfall.
Yeah.
Thinking that you understand something while you don't. And I mean, if you hear him talking sometimes about the fact that thousands of people are sending him emails and telling him that they wanted to suicide or do or couldn't find any willingness to come out of bed, and that he changed the whole world. And you can see when he's talking about stuff like that, he almost feels like a god, right? He really and truly thinks he is a god. And if you hear an interview with him talking about his dad, you can see the same issues that his dad has, which was truly a narcissist. And he talks about it. It's like, no, I'm not like his dad. But if you would ask why not, he cannot argue it.
Yeah, you know what? For me, the funnest part is, I don't know if you've come across his brother as well. There's a bit of content where it's with his brother, but his brother is also in quite a reasonable position. Also had a career, but he's 100 times more humble than him. I don't know if you've noticed, but it's super interesting to see the contrast because they live very similar lifestyles. He also drives the Bugatti. He also has millions. He also did a kickboxing career, but he is a lot more humble. And whenever I hear him speak, usually I'm like, why didn't this guy get more famous? But then you realize people stick to the extremes, right?
Yeah.
So because Andrew Tate is so polarizing and he says things that are out there that go against what the media is potentially pushing, people gravitate and cling on to that as if he is a messiah. And that, in turn, confirms for him that he is onto something and that he might be a god or that he might be bringing the next big thing.
Yeah, while a lot of people, I think, are laughing at him or with him just because they think it's hilarious that you can be, most of the time so stupid or so full of yourself or like that. It's entertaining. Yeah, it is.
Entertaining.
Yeah, no, but it is but it's not because, and that is what he thinks, that it is because he's one of a genius, right? Yeah. Some people maybe will argue that he is, and sure, why not? Yeah, I don't care. But to be honest, I wanted to dive a little bit deeper into the band.
Yeah,
and
I get that.
We had a short discussion about it, but I think it is a subject that, for one or another reason, I don't know why, but isn't picked up as much as you would expect, or at least I would expect. And I think one of the persons I know of that really gave I think a plain and simple explanation was Elon Musk, and that was when he was asked about his motivation to buy Twitter, why he would do that, and let me introduce you a little bit, and then I will make my point, and I'm very curious what your opinion about it is. So I completely agree with Elon Musk. And what Elon Musk was saying was that Twitter and a discussion in general should be open to everyone.
Yeah.
Because only then you are confronted with completely different opinions and views. And that was like when he was referring to the fact that it should be a market square, right? Where people can just digital market down or whatever, right? That was what he is saying.
Yeah.
And like I'm saying, I completely agree. And I think that different opinions and views can only make your beliefs stronger as long as you can defend them. And the stronger your defense on a completely different opinion, the better you have to understand it and believe in your own beliefs.
Yeah.
And this open debate is also the way, I believe, to be inspired by new ideas, and to let go of the wrong mindset, or to understand better what you really believe to a level that you can defend it. And I was thinking about a kind of an example, and I came up with one, and you can give me your feedback. But for me, it's like saying to your boss that you don't want feedback, because then you are confronted by subjects you might could improve upon, right?
Yeah.
While the argument should be, okay, give me as much feedback back as you can, so that I know what to improve, and to make sure that after receiving, let's say, 100 times feedback, the other has no more feedback to give me. And then the result is the same, namely not receiving negative feedback. But in the first scenario, you throw someone off Twitter. In other words, you have removed the feedback. While in the second scenario, you have an open discussion in which everyone can enter, and you can defend your beliefs. In other words, you have embraced and integrated the feedback so much that the other has no more feedback to give you, and you should go to other people for feedback, or have a discussion with different people, right? And that is the square market.
Yeah.
And to be frank, I think that is just one big reason. So in conclusion, that would be, I would rather choose to improve than to run away, right? Or to say you cannot join, you are not welcome. But the second big argument would be that if you decide not to follow this path and continue to throw people off social media, they will find or create a new platform or place to ventilate their thoughts. But now the people that follow them will be concentrated in this new closed group, where radical ideas, due to a lack of different opinions and beliefs, will likely grow much faster to the extremes. With extremist ideology, the thing you want to prevent as a result. So I think it's not really a choice we have. We have to embrace common sense and say, as long as you can hold yourself to a preset of conditions that are very transparent, like basic rules of respect, then you should be able to ventilate your beliefs and ideas. And if you decide to block content, then make that transparent. What content and why, and don't say that the content is so wrong that you cannot say what it is, or explain why we have blocked it, because having that discussion in public is the beginning and fundamental to have an open debate about ideas and beliefs.
Yeah.
So it's like two arguments why you should never do it. One is to that we can all improve, and the other is if you don't do it, then the alternative is much worse.
Exactly. So indeed, the example that you gave by asking feedback from your employer, I think that's very relevant, because what it looks like to me right now is that Andrew Tate and all his messages, his way of thinking, didn't align with what media is pushing, or what is usually to be called the common consensus about Western society. Let's just phrase it like that and leave that for what it is right now. He then proceeds to produce a lot of content, and people really gravitate towards it. So their response to that is throwing him off the platform. And the fans of Andrew Tate are still using the platform and wanting to use it. So but because he's not able to be found there and he's gone to a different platform, they will follow. Which means that essentially the media or the platform has also lost an amount of its user and the data that it's gathering. So it's fundamentally a loss for them as well to have those users gotten rid of the platform. So you really got to ask yourself, what is the motivation behind it to throw somebody off their platform, right? Because you would imagine that it has a financial incentive for them, since everything is about money anyway. Or what else could be behind it? Do you have a guess?
Yeah, but you could also argue the other way around, that the fact that there is, I mean, if you would look at the revenue of Twitter, if you would look at like the revenue of Twitter is related to a certain extent to the amount of users and the amount of content that those users are producing. And when can you bring those parameters to the highest level? When you have chaos. Think about war. Think about Trump storming the Capitol. Like these moments, or moments like these, you will see a spike in Twitter activity, because Twitter is giving updates in the heat of the moment. So if a rocket would now hit Zelensky, the first place you could read it will be Twitter. So and if you follow that reasoning, then you could argue that it would be in the benefit of Twitter and Facebook to block no content and to let everyone go crazy. But then you have that is what regulation, society, whatever you will call it. But that is what happened with Twitter. That who ultimately made the call, I don't know. I didn't, at least, but someone...
Would you have?
No. Someone said somewhere, or made the decision somewhere, to ban Donald Trump from Twitter. Someone did that. And there was a a trade-off, I assume, in which you say, okay, the value of having an open discussion with the President of the United States, which is super interesting. I mean, I will hold my opinion, but which is super interesting. That someone is able but also willing to be in a position in which he is saying, okay, I don't think that the value of that open debate of the President of the United States, the President of the free world, is more valuable than or outweighs the trouble that is coming from the chaos that arises from him having a public opinion.
Indeed, and then you could say, well, Donald Trump should be held liable for the actions or the tweets that he could post on his Twitter. But on the other hand, I think platforms such as Twitter, and I mean, let's take a step back for a second. Andrew Tate was blocked from everything within a few hour time span. It was bank accounts, I remember. It was Uber. It was Instagram. It was Twitter. It was his YouTube. Everything. Within the smallest time frame. So you have to imagine how much of an organized attack this was on Andrew Tate. And the biggest problem with it is, if you ask the companies what is the exact reasoning that he was removed from this platform, what rules did he break, what regulations did he not comply to, they can't give a straight answer. And there's, I think, where a critical problem lies. And it could also claim that back to Donald Trump as well, is that you perhaps you don't have to agree with everything he's saying, but nobody has to agree with everything he's saying. I mean, that's literally what half the platform is for. But if you're going to set up a system of rules in which you have to comply, fine, great, we can all agree to that. But then you have to be completely transparent in the way that you handle those things, and that is just not the case.
No, and that is exactly the problem. So we are not sure if there exists a framework, and if there exists a framework or not, we are sure it is not transparent. Yeah. But the question arises: is there even a framework, and what is the basis of that framework?
I know. What the most interesting part is, what I think is that I think probably 99%, maybe even more of the content that gets removed. For example, we have on TikTok, it's no nudity, right? That's one of the rules. On Twitter, it's not one of the rules, but whatever. TikTok is one of the rules, no nudity, right? And I think machine learning or the algorithm is basically the thing that looks at a post and picks out, is able to detect any nudity, and perhaps if it has screened something, it'll put it on a message, and then a real person can review it. What I have noticed more and more is what I'm about to expose some accounts now, but what they do is they post like 25 pictures into one post, and you have to swipe it. And then they do one of those posts is like a naked picture, fully naked, and the TikTok algorithm doesn't grab it. So I have seen some with 100,000s of views, full of comments and stuff that get recommended to me through TikTok that have that.
No.
Yeah. So I think that really it's a machine that is making these decisions.
Yeah. No, that's interesting, because that is the point Elon Musk is making. That is the whole thing why. He wanted to buy Twitter, and now months later, he has already said we are overpaying for it at this price because there are a lot of bots and a lot of things that are not transparent. We don't know. Yeah, you have manipulated the numbers, right?
Exactly.
But that is exactly his point. And so, but now he agreed to overpay for it with the note that he will create value, and therefore in the future there will still be an opportunity. Right? If it will be $100 billion, then it doesn't matter that you pay 10 billion too much right now.
Yeah, exactly.
Because
so you have to know what kind of value it generates.
Exactly, and you can say that with Elon Musk, it realized a potential value that is that no one else can. Like the best alternative someone could do is realize is 50 billion. So because of the Musk, you can generate 50 additional billion, which could be make it worth to overpay for 15 instead of because then net you will get 35, and the other situation you will get 0.
Yeah, exactly.
And a lot of litigation bullshit. So it's quite interesting, and we could ask ourselves how we came to this situation, right? Because indeed it is what you're saying. It's quite arbitrary, and I would dare even to go as far as saying, okay, what would happen if I would create a Twitter account and I would say beep the king, and then I would say beep Mark Rutte, then I would say beep God, and then I would say beep Allah or whatever. Now I bet you that you will see an increasing likelihood of getting banned from Twitter. While all those 4 tweets were just my personal opinion.
Yeah.
And now, if I would do exactly the same situation, but now instead of only the text at my tweet, I will also add a cartoon. What do you think will happen if I make a cartoon about saying that I dislike the king? Then the vice president, then God?
I think you'll go viral.
Yeah, no, but you see what will happen, and that is interesting because then you're saying not, and that is, I'm just making a case for your point, right? So that it is not a framework which determines this is too provocative or not, and just a checklist on which we base our ban or not, or a warning of a ban or not, but just that it is arbitrary based on how many people get offended by it.
Yeah, exactly. How people feel when they look at it.
But if you think about that, then you by definition don't have a platform in which you can share your opinions.
Exactly.
Then you know that it is truly a bubble.
Exactly, but no, it isn't because we want to think that it's so everybody's playing by the same rules, but what in fact it is that everybody's playing by how it makes them feel, right? It's why. For example, just very left media is pushing inclusivity, diversity, and we need to have more women in the workplace, more people of color, right? This is a very important thing. But when you look at diversity of thought, right, everybody needs to be able to share their opinion. We need to be able to have a fascist. We need to be able to have somebody that perhaps has Nazi beliefs. We need to be able to have all these different viewpoints so we can have discussions and then come to our own conclusions about how we feel. But that is not the case at all. We want certain kinds of inclusivity that makes us feel like, yeah, everybody's accepted and we're all great and everybody gets to be just who they are, but that's not the case. It's very, very superficial in that regard. And I think most people overlook that.
Yeah, and you cannot say that it is let me put it differently. It is not the people that are the madman, right?
No.
It's Twitter that is, because you can only know that it is superficial or you can only know that it is not superficial if it's transparent.
Exactly.
And if it's not transparent, then it could be superficial or not, but you are never sure.
Yeah.
So that is the reason why we should have a transparent framework.
Indeed. So, to finish it off, I think the idea that we have companies such as Twitter, Meta, TikTok, that ban people, if they're going to ban people, needs to be transparent. Otherwise, it's basically just criminal. And speaking of criminals, we have got a problem in the Netherlands.
Yeah, we do.
Because one of our most or perhaps the most famous person in the Netherlands, Mark Rutte, has to improve his security because of the fear that lies within the country. And I think you, Jala, can tell us a little bit more about that.
Yeah, indeed. So it's more an increasing threat from the underworld. And maybe to give some context, living in the Netherlands, I mean, we are an exporting country in general. If it's about cheese, services, or vegetables, food, indeed, that doesn't really matter. We are an exporter, and so also in drugs. That is also why Germany is most of the time not very grateful when young Dutch people with especially Audi RSS cross the border, because those are always trouble, and they just have their car full with drugs, and it will double in price the second they cross the border, right? So that is how it works over here. Small country, good infrastructure, in neighboring two different countries. One is Belgium, the other is Germany, and Belgium is of course also a very small country. So now because of the big how you say it, that airport, Jesus, where the boats come in.
The Hague, 16 the port?
The port. Wow. Oh my God, thanks. So yeah, the great port of Rotterdam. You could question yourself how great it is now, right? But so no, the great port of Rotterdam, and was for a long time like the biggest of Europe. I bet it still is. So a lot of drugs is coming in, and I think the drugs market here in Europe is, or in Netherlands, sorry, in just the Netherlands for cocaine alone is just 80 billion, right? So 80 billion, yeah, it's a lot. And the thing is, and I find that quite interesting because yeah, you saw that Mark Rutte needed some extra security, but what you also saw is that Amalia, so like the our queen, you could say, not right now, but probably in the future, would was studying in Amsterdam, but she couldn't because of the increasing threat.
Yeah.
Now, of course, that is sad. Everyone will have their own opinions about it, but I don't think that anyone deserves that.
Yeah, no,
everyone should be able to live in safety. But what I do think is that it is typical for the policy that we have here in the Netherlands. Because of course we all know het gedoogbeleid, so we have a policy in which you can buy weed in the shop, but then you are not allowed to have more than 5 grams, which immediately arise, if you have such a construction, you could ask yourself, okay, but then who is selling to the coffee shop? If you cannot have more than 5 grams, it means that everyone selling to the coffee shop, which is almost more than 5 grams, because the coffee shop is selling less than 5 grams, that someone is being illegal. And we have made a policy in which we say, if you want to hold yourself to these policies, you should act illegal. That by definition is a weird construction.
It's very strange.
And of course there's a reasoning why it is like it is, but that doesn't that is not a motivation why it is the best and why you didn't try to improve it even more, right? So that is that, and I think this is just typical for the way of for some problems that we have in the Netherlands. So I think some problems we can't really solve because we in the Netherlands have just different opinions about it, and then we say, okay, we sort of take the middle ground, but that most often doesn't work. And I think that is the same happening with drugs. So they became so powerful, especially the cocaine trade, that if you didn't stop it a few years ago, they will become more powerful and more powerful and more powerful.
Exactly.
And the price of a bullet will decrease because you will earn more.
Yeah. No, I hear what you're saying.
If I have $1 million to spend, then each bullet will be more expensive than I have a billion to spend. And that is just for the simple reason that if I have $1 million, I can, let's say that a bullet would cost you 100,000 euros, I can at max buy 10 bullets. But now with $1 billion, I can almost buy 1,000 bullets. Which means that if you, it is quite sick to think about this, but this is how organized crime works, that you could say, okay, but if I need to buy 100 bullets or 100 killings, then I can do that by 100 different people, or I can just ask for a few people who are constantly doing that. And then you could imagine that then I'm not paying you every time 100,000 euros because you have to do it once, but I'm paying you 75, but then now you can do it 10 times a month. Right? So now you can earn 750,000 instead of 100,000. And this is like crazy to think about stuff like this, but I think if you don't care about other human beings, then this is the way of reasoning you will take, and then you will just go for
take down any who oppose us.
And then you will get a bloodbath, and that is what I think is not recognized in the Netherlands. And then when like a famous journalist in Amsterdam gets shot in the most busiest street
the
of
busiest
the
street
of Amsterdam, which is the busy city of the Netherlands, then it just shows you, and a lot of people are flabbergasted by the fact that that could happen. And I'm thinking, no, that was almost trivial. It is almost a wonder that it didn't happen earlier. And now you know for sure that the guy got paid 150,000 euros, and that's what I'm saying. The next bullet on the same place will be cheaper, because now people have seen, okay, I can do it 150. I will do it for 70, 60, 50.
Exactly.
Let's go.
I mean, it's not information I really want to spread, but it's just to make a case that, like, what was it now? Almost a month ago. I was doing a video shoot for a rapper. Was a very fun experience, but one of the elements of the shoot involved us putting on fake blood on our face, on our shirt, on our body, and we had a grand fun time, and we were all in a place with a camera, so people kind of had an idea, oh, nothing weird is going on. But afterwards, I quickly had to move on, and I didn't have time to wash my face off. So I got into public transport, my face was bloody, my neck was bloody, my ear was bloody, and I really looked like I just murdered somebody. I stepped into the train, put my card on there, people gave me a bit of weird looks, nobody even talked to me. They ignored me, nobody was on their phone calling police, nobody was like scared, people were just like, oh, I assume that it's fine. And that is the whole problem. We assume that everything is fine, but it's not. It's not.
No, that's a great example.
Yeah.
It's like, if I don't see it, it's not there.
Exactly, and that's the same principle. I actually heard it from Jordan Peterson. If you hear a woman scream on the street, like a blood-curdling scream, everybody thinks, oh, somebody else will get it. Like so many other people have heard it, somebody will call the police. And therefore nobody calls the police, because everybody assumes that somebody else is taking care of it. And we keep being in this loop where we are in such a giant society where we're like, how is anybody getting away with this? It's because we think somebody else takes care of the problem. And we have to be responsible for each other and take action.
Yeah, and believe that you can make the change, because I believe that is related to, in some way, to it. Because if you really do not believe, and that is an ideological view, that you either believe that you truly can change the world or you don't. And if you don't believe that, and it's not that binary, but just for the sake of the argument, if it would be that you don't believe that, if it would be the case that you would believe that, then I can also imagine that you just leave it, right? But for all the people that believe that you can change the world, don't let it slip by, because that makes the change. And I know it's kind of a follow-up story, but I know when we were like on high school, and we had sometimes, here in Rotterdam we don't do it, but in most of the parts of the Netherlands and international, you try to separate your dirt, right? So you want to take the plastic with the plastic.
Oh yeah, separate your garbage.
The garbage, I was searching for the word, thanks. So now, sometimes I was just chilling with people, they were eating like a cookie or a biscuit or whatever, and then you had like the packaging of the thing. So what then sometimes would happen is that people would just throw it on the ground, but then like 1 meter like next to him or behind him, there would be like a bin. So I would say, why would you not throw that in the bin? And then people sometimes would argue and say, what does this one paper matter? And I think it's a fair question. I would say, go to almost any ocean in the world.
No, and not almost any, every ocean in the world.
And see the results yourself. Because that is what that is your point, right? When you just think that you only are solo in this world.
Exactly.
And that you cannot really make a change. But that then again, it's related to a certain extent to, do you believe that you can make the change? Because those people were really of the opinion, and it was not only with this, but with a lot of different things, that it doesn't matter what they think, what they did.
Indeed, and I think that is without diving too deep into it, is kind of the nihilist mindset. That, I mean, I've lived it, so I can relate it. I can relate to it better than some other people. But it's the idea that everything you do is insignificant, right? There are 7 billion people in the world. What do your actions matter? Even if you eat vegan all your life, ride the bike, never waste carbon emissions, you will still make like not even a dent on the grand scheme of things, right?
Yeah.
It's basically it has no effects, but what people fail to realize is that your actions affect other people who they might join your actions. And for example, if you and a group of people start buying a vegan product, and that vegan product gets more popular, gets picked up, gets traction, gets marketing, then is divided more. Yeah, people don't take into consideration the amount of effects that ripple outwards. So if you're living your life to the ideals, then other people will be affected in a way that you can't possibly imagine. And that is what people fail to be as optimistic to realize the potential capabilities of that. So I think if we really want to see the world to be a better place, we all have a part to play in that.
Yeah, and don't sell yourself short.
Exactly. Don't sell yourself short, and don't be ignorant to the possibilities that you and the effects that you can have on others.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I think that is a great conclusion.
I agree.
Yeah, well, a lot of questions we didn't need to answer. Sure, great. This is
but the point is that we had a great discussion and we had some great points, right? And that's the most important part.
Yeah, no, that is true. I want to talk a little bit about the Formula One, and luckily,
I hope it goes fast.
Yeah, Tom and I are luckily on the same page because we both are not a big fan of Formula One.
Mm.
That is maybe not the greatest start of a subject. You could argue that's right.
Exactly. You can hear the excitement fade from our voices.
Yeah.
People starting to reach in their pocket, trying like, I think I've had enough. That last segment was pretty great, but this is where I call it quits.
Yeah. No, so we don't want to dive too deep into the sports, but because we thought it is, we want to describe the news, talk a little bit about global developments, and we do think that sports is quite some important subjects, right? A big part of entertainment, and Formula One, especially I think in Europe, but because Max Verstappen, which is a Dutchman, is also really present and alive in the Netherlands, right? I think to be honest, that is also part of it.
Yeah, for sure.
Because if we won't have any Dutch top man in the
no, exactly. But it's just that the person that happens to be first or second is literally Dutch.
Yeah. No, exactly. So my question for you is, what do you think of Formula One? So do you like it? Don't you? And why not? And would you ever go?
So for me, I've never really been enticed by Formula One. I mean, I liked Cars, the movie. That was quite fun. Lightning McQueen. And I mean, I've always loved going fast, so I've done snowboarding a few times, and going down a hill at the fastest you can go is one of the most exhilarating feelings you can have. So imagine driving in an incredibly fast race car is also very fun. But for me personally, I feel like it doesn't excite me as much as other sports, because I mean, I do realize the skill that there is to it, and I do realize the potential and the fierceness, but the risk of ruining a car that costs millions is very high, and it's hard to put a pinpoint in it. But for example, a sport which has more physical contact that also has risk. I mean, you can break your leg, right? But with Formula One, if it goes real wrong, it goes really, really wrong. So, and kids watch that stuff as well. So that there's a bit of a fear in the other hand, and also, but that is just my personal opinion, and I could be very wrong, is that I personally think it takes more skill to play, for example, contact or a team sport than it would take to drive car at Formula One level. But I think, actually, now that I think about it more, when you're at the top level and you have to make pinpoint decisions at every corner, probably not the case, but I find it more interesting to watch. Right? But would I ever go? Perhaps once, just for the experience. But I very much doubt that I would be a recurring customer.
Okay. I think that's quite an interesting opinion, and to be honest, I think I share and I share it for at least a part. In that, I also think that so I could really follow your argument that of course maybe I like watching it a little bit, but I do think that it is also not really entertaining because it isn't that hard. And right, what you were saying on top level would be comparable, but what I find, for me the biggest argument for me is that I would say that everyone is I mean, I do think that football is also not a very intellectual sport.
Yeah, no, I agree.
And that's also the reason why I won't watch it. But what I do see is that every person on earth can take a ball and start kicking to it.
Exactly.
And not everyone is able or has rich parents who have hundreds of thousands of euros, which enables you to, from an age of 6, start riding a car.
Yeah, exactly.
And that is for me the biggest point. So it is
fact.
not. So the people that are competing in the Formula One, they aren't the best. No, they aren't the best of the rich people.
Yeah, exactly. They've been groomed into the sport.
Exactly. So there is not really competition. It's just an elite sport, and then in the elite sport you can be the best. Yeah, fine. But who cares?
Yeah,
who cares?
No, it's a good argument. I hadn't even taken that into consideration yet, but I actually watched it was a small news segment on Max Verstappen. Yeah, it was indeed. He started when he was 6, 7, go-karting, and it starts with like once or twice a week, but then it goes to 5, 6 days a week, and you're constantly doing that from a young age. Yeah, okay. And then you have an edge when you get to step in a car at 18 and you've already had thousands of hours driving experience. Yeah. You're not playing the same game.
No.
So indeed, it is in that case it is literally the definition of an elite sport. So perhaps that is also has something to do with my non-affinity for it.
Yeah. Okay. But what maybe would be interesting to round it up would be that question. And now, of course, you see Formula One. Formula is about the combustion engines, and what you see is, of course, that past 10 years or so, now Red Bull is winning with Max, but beforehand, Lewis Hamilton, Mercedes would win every year, right? Because they have the biggest budget, they would spend the most money on it, and therefore they would win. Now, what maybe would be interesting is to say, okay, the future is electric, so make an electric Formula One, and I know it already exists. But what maybe would be interesting is to not do it as the same as the internal combustion engine competition, in which it is just a matter of skill plus money, but just a case in which you would say, for example, Tesla, as a sort of a marketing brand deal, that would say, okay, we will organize, other people can organize it, but we will, as a sort of contribution, give 100 Teslas, Model S plate, whatever you want, to the people that are going to drive. And what you then could do is that the competitive advantage that some teams could derive from the money, from having an absurd amount of budget, would then be deleted and would be just solely focused on the skill.
Exactly. And you know what I think would be funny and a great addition to that is actually, if Tesla would be good enough, you could have a self-driving car in there and see if they can beat the self-driving Tesla.
Yeah, that is great.
Yeah, right.
We should tweet him.
Yeah, we should reach out to Elon Musk and see if we cannot get him excited for this.
And you can also tweet us, huh, Musk?
Yeah, exactly.
It's not always one way or.
Exactly. It goes both ways. Ways. So no, I think it's a fun idea, and I think definitely perhaps. People also like the roaring sounds of the race cars, and people like the ability to build and innovate, right? But especially for like a one-time thing, if it was all Teslas and it was pure driving skill, I might actually be more enticed to go to, because indeed it kind of removes the elitist aspect of it. Then it's like, okay, everybody starts at the same point. I mean, you also have driving experience, right? That still is a factor, but at least you're all driving the same car. Good luck, right? Yeah. This is purely how well can you handle this car. And I think that could be incredibly interesting. Musk, you're free to reach out. We are expecting to hear from you soon, so don't disappoint. And with that, I think we'd like to finish up and say thank you all for listening. It's been a pleasure having you. This was Tom.
This was Jala.
And stay curious.
Bye.
See ya.